Assalamu alaikum, hello, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Ikra and I film beauty videos and some education themed videos as well, and with a little bit of fashion here and there. So today I'm here to film my NQT year overview. I've had a lot of questions as well, so I'm going to do several videos. My NQT year overview, I'm going to start off by saying Alhamdulillah, I was really blessed to have a pretty amazing class. I'll go right back to the start. So the transition days, the first couple of days at the beginning of term are very crucial. It's the sort of important time that you get with your class to set your expectations and to set the rules of the classroom, because they might, well, depending on if you have year 1 or year 2, they might not have that experience, but by the time they're in year 6 they've got experience of being in school, they've got experience of having the same teacher, and they know that teachers are different. Every teacher is slightly different and there's no uniform version of a teacher. The first couple of days it's really important to be very firm and to keep repeating yourself, and you will find yourself repeating yourself, but it is worth it. If you kind of start letting things slide in the beginning, then they're just going to pick up on the fact that, you know what, I can do what I want and it's fine, like nothing's going to happen, no one will say anything to me. So I guess the first thing is like the transition days, the first 2 to 3 days of being with your class. Of course have fun activities, but be very clear in what you expect, and make sure that you're establishing your routines and your expectations. So even if it means practicing lining up silently 10 times, if that's what it takes, that's what you have to do, because then the next time you ask them to line up, it's not going to be a big palaver and a big hoo-ha for them to get up and line up silently. And these routines that you will have to work very hard on establishing, they will then help you later on down the line when you have 101 other things to think about and you don't necessarily want to be spending lots of time nagging them on doing basic things like that. And sometimes towards like the end of the year the routines tend to unravel and you're gonna have to remind them again because they're children and that's what happens. I will also say that behaviour is very important. Following the school's behaviour policy to the T is essential. So if you're about to start your NQT year in September, you should have already been given a school like policy guide. If not, hopefully you can go into school and get one. I know our one, there's physical copies and they're also on the shared drive as well, so if you forget you can just flick through that. I would recommend, if you don't have a physical copy, to print one out and highlight and just make sure that you understand, because sometimes some school behaviour policies are quite long and there's a lot of different steps to go over. So definitely this summer make sure that you are understanding what is expected and how schools deal with specific behaviours. I think I am going to do a whole different video on behaviour and expectations because it's been asked about a lot, so that should be coming up in the next few weeks. The main thing I want to say is don't be afraid to ask for help. Ask the TAs around you, ask other teachers, ask your head of year, ask for help, because they've been there a lot longer than you and they know what to expect. What we had said as NQTs was you have this metaphorical NQT card for the first year only, where you can say, okay, I made a mistake, that's fine because I'm an NQT and I'm learning from it. And you have to be so open to making mistakes and learning and constantly growing. And I'm kind of like, I'm a little bit apprehensive about going in September because I won't be an NQT anymore. I'll be a RQT, recently qualified teacher, but I won't be a newly qualified teacher. At the same time though, I've got a whole years of experience behind me and there's so many little things that were happening throughout the year which I thought, you know what, next year I'm going to do this differently. And I think again that warrants its own video as well. Just little things that I just think I need to learn from that, and you will. It's so natural to just learn from your mistakes constantly when you're teaching and you're literally learning on the job. One point that I will make that I definitely try to do is learning their names as soon as possible, because it makes a huge difference. Rather than pointing, rather than just sort of calling out in the direction, just try to learn their names, and just do whatever it takes. Stick labels on them for the first week, or do a lot of circles. Our schools do a lot of circles, so in the first week I was getting them to say their name and then give them the facts, or whenever they were doing a circle basically I was asking them to say their name, and that helped me so much because then I could understand like who's who. And then when you're able to call children by their name, they just feel more I guess, personable. It becomes more personable, and it's just easier as well. One thing that's really important is reminding them that they're a whole year older now. Obviously you've had the whole 6 weeks holidays, and they transition from year 3 to year 4, or year 2 to year 3, or year 5 to year 6. So they are another year older. There's more children who are coming into school who are younger than them and who are looking up to them as role models. So it's actually very important to remind them of that, and remind them that they are the role models of the school, especially if you're in year 6 like I was and still am. Children in the school that the younger children look up to as their role models, so they constantly have to be showing them how it's done. So that's one of the things that I didn't just do at the start, I did throughout the year, and I think it really did make a difference. I'm just going to go over my strengths and weaknesses of my NQT year, and if you guys have any questions, obviously you can leave them below, but I'll start with my weaknesses and things that I really struggled with. Number 1, first of all, it was writing assessments. Oh my goodness, they were like the bane of my life. And what I will say to anyone who's going into NQT year is get on top of these from day 1. Don't put it off. Don't like say, oh, I'll do it next week, I'll do it next week. Just get it done that weekend, or focus the whole of the week, that, like, you know, the time that you're in school, after school, that whole time on doing those writing assessments and getting them done. Because that's the worst thing you can do, is just put them off and let them build up. And it just becomes like, you know, when you're at university and you're doing these assignments and you just, there's that one assignment that you really don't want to do, you really don't want to think about, it just becomes a bit like that. So just get on top of it. And I think one of the reasons why I struggled with it and why I was putting off myself was because unless when you were training you did a lot of work on writing assessments, it's quite challenging to mark, and it's definitely what I found the most difficult from everything. I thought I would struggle most with like maths, but actually it was writing. Obviously the school's policy as well, because every school has a different policy, and also some children are not going to be working at year 6 level, some of them are going to be working at year 4 level. If they're new to country, some of them will be working at year 3 level, so you have to make sure that you're assessing them against the correct year group assessment criteria. So definitely make sure that writing assessments are not this awful evil monster for you. Make sure that you are asking for support, whether that's from your year head or from your mentor, and make sure that you know what you're doing, and maybe read up on it this summer as well. Personally, I know that I'm going to be rejigging my writing folder the way I did things. I'm going to make sure that I've got spare assessment grids printed out in every single child's folder from day 1, so that I don't have to waste time faffing and printing and photocopying that when term starts. You know, all these little jobs that you don't really know how to do, or that you're supposed to even be doing them when you're in NQT. That's something that I definitely wish I would be more prepared for my NQT year, and in my next year I'm definitely going to be much more on it, so that's one of my goals. On that note, ask the other teachers around you for examples of what a good one looks like, or from last year, if they were in that year group last year and you're not, and you don't really know what to expect, because that's one of the biggest problems, is you don't always know what you're looking for. You don't know what, you know, a 6 exceeded writing looks like compared to a 6 met, compared to a 6 almost. Like, it's very challenging, especially when you're new to it. So ask for examples and see what there is out there. And that's the other thing, you can use the internet as well. So obviously the government have this website which they have their own example of what a 6 met should look like, so use that as well. Print it out if you need to, use it, and then try and compare that when you're marking the writing assessments. Number 2, my second probably weakest point, was time management. I think first of all I want to say that obviously you are going to be slower than all the teachers around you because it's your first year, and it's important not to be too harsh on yourself about that and not to beat yourself up about that, because it's just a reality. Like, this is the first time that you are going to be marking a whole stack of books per subject every single week. That is a lot in itself. You might have other planning responsibilities on your shoulders as well, and then you also have the assessment to do as well. So at the end of every half term usually there's a maths assessment and English assessment, and usually at the end of every term there's a writing assessment as well. So you're going to have to factor in time to prepare the children for that, and then also time to mark that, which is why when people say, teachers get so many holidays, actually not really, no, because we're spending a lot of those holidays actually still working on the school responsibilities. You're also going to have to be doing the displays in your classroom. You're also going to have to be making sure that the classroom is kept tidy and neat and organised, and you're also going to be making sure that you are keeping up with team meetings and just all these other things that you don't really think about when you are training, even sometimes, because you don't have that responsibility until you are the class teacher, and suddenly you are in charge of so much, and it's down to you to make sure that you're getting it done. So time management is vital, and it's something that I had like weeks where I was really good at it and I was really on the ball, and then I had weeks where I was just really struggling. And obviously the most important thing, the priority, is always the children and making sure that they are able to learn effectively and that they're safe and happy. But I do think that from September, or actually no, from like the next few weeks, I'm going to start making sure that I'm preparing resources in advance. I'm going to make sure that my classroom is organised amazingly. So personally, what I'm going to do is go back to setting myself a weekly timetable, and something that really inspired me to do this was actually in our NQT farewell conference. We had the afternoon with this head teacher who had been teaching for 27 years before he became head teacher, and now he's like managing 2 schools, and he was just super inspiring, and all of us were kind of just hooked onto his every word. And what he said was that he spent 27 years working 8 till 6, not taking any work home. And I'm not sure about weekends, he didn't really mention weekends, maybe sometimes here and there he did do some work on the weekends, but 27 years of 8 till 6 and no extra hours at home, that just seemed like an amazing myth to me. When he said it, I was just like, oh my goodness. And he actually said, he was like, I can see some of you are looking at me like, are you sure? Like, how did you do that? Is that even possible? But he was like, it is possible. You just have to be able to say no, like, because it's very easy, and I definitely was guilty of doing this. So like, once you say goodbye to the children, going into the staff room, making yourself a cup of tea or coffee, and then going to catch up with another NQT or another teacher that's down the hall to you, you know, I think it's a very necessary thing to do. I feel like if I hadn't done that sometimes, then I would have been a lot more stressed, because they know exactly what you're going through. They know, they can understand the good days and the bad days, and sometimes you just need that outlet and that release. However, there has to be a limit, and for me, I don't think I found that limit. I'm going to test this 8 to 6 theory out. I'm usually in school by 8. I'm going to try and see if I can limit the work that I do at home, because that would be so nice to not have to do a lot of work at home. And I'm going to try and pick up tips and tricks, and again, maybe that will be another video for later on down the line, but that's definitely something I want to look at. Okay, so those were my weaknesses, my things that I struggled with, and things that I definitely want to be improving next year, inshallah. Let's talk about my strengths now. So the first thing I will say in my NQT year is I managed to create a really safe, happy classroom environment from as early as possible. And as much as I was saying that behaviour management is so key, being full of praise and positivity and smiles and recognising their strengths is just as important, in my opinion, and celebrating their strengths and celebrating them as individuals. Some holidays I had a birthday display, which some people might think, well, year 6, like, they're kind of old for that, you know, they might not appreciate that, but they loved it. I had like a little balloon thing from Twinkle, which, you know, went from January to December. It was like a bunch of balloons, and it was like our class birthdays, and had their names and their dates on them. And then for their birthday, they had the opportunity or the chance, if they wanted to wear a inflatable crown. It was like the birthday crown. And I know that other teachers in the school were a bit like, okay. And I think, you know, maybe at first my class were also a bit like, this is new, this is different. But honestly, by the time it was the second child's turn to have a birthday in September, they loved it, because they were allowed to wear the crown the whole day. Obviously they couldn't take it outside, because then it would get damaged and people would get upset. But they were allowed to have the crown on all day, and it just made them feel a little bit more special and happy, and you can just sense that feeling of, oh, it's my birthday today and I feel a bit special. So that's something that I did. It was something really small. The crown I got from ASOS, I'll link it below. It was just something, you know, it wasn't that difficult to do or to think of, but it did make a difference throughout the year, and you know, the children were really happy to be able to celebrate their birthday in a really small way that isn't very disruptive either. I also had like very motivational quotes all around the room. A lot of them were again from Twinkle, because Twinkle have fantastic resources. Something else I think that was a strength for me was being firm with what is acceptable and what is not. So although my class knew that we could always have a laugh and have a bit of a giggle, there were some things that were not acceptable, and one of them was like using slang terms like bruv, fam, cuz, those sort of things in a classroom. So I was like, this is not classroom language. If you want to use it on the playground, that's fine, but right now you're in the classroom. Our main goal here is to learn and be happy, and that is not the sort of language that I expect. And when one child would figure out, the other one would, you know, politely point out like, I'm pretty sure Miss said we weren't supposed to be saying that, so they were very good at that. Something else I banned in my classroom right from day one was shut up. I just think it's so rude, and I think there's much better ways of telling someone to be quiet. So that's absolutely banned. And you know, if someone does say it, they have to do our consequence system, which there was one. I'm not going to go into it because it's like our school thing, and you know, I don't even know if I'm allowed to go into it. But like I said, every single school will have their own behaviour management policy. You do need to stick to yours, but that doesn't mean you can't add in extra things yourself. So something that I added in myself, which isn't in the policy, is table points. I love the idea of table points. When I was in primary school myself, I absolutely thrived of having table points, and also it makes life a lot easier as well as a teacher, because you can pretty much set the tables up and you can change them around throughout the year if you want to. I mean, what I did was I had 4 tables pretty much a whole year, and because I'm a bit of a Potterhead, I had to have obviously the 4 houses. So I had Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff and Slytherin, and I would change the seating plan around every single half term, just based on various things, but I wouldn't really set them ability based ever. I'd always have them mixed ability, and then sometimes I'd have like some friends on the table but not necessarily next to each other. And then obviously if it's not working, you can just move a few people around who can't cope in that seating position. But definitely having a seating plan and sticking to it definitely helps. First of all, to help you learn the names, and secondly because it's your classroom, and if you let them sit where they want, their learning quality is going to go downhill pretty quickly. So that's one thing I will say as well, is definitely set a seating plan and don't be afraid to move it or change it if you have to. Another point I will say is using silence quite often and then rarely raising my voice. One of the biggest tips I was told was you never ever speak over them, and that's why the first few days are so important when they're transitioning, is because if they start learning that actually Miss is talking, but if I have my conversation with my friend right now, it's fine, she won't really mind because she'll just carry on talking, then it will lower the respect that they have for you. So you have to wait for them to stop talking, and of course give them consequences. So if it's like one particular child who's continuing to talk over or not concentrate or do whatever XYZ, give them a consequence, and you have to make sure that they're quiet. So either stand there with your hand up and wait for them to respond and copy the same signal, or, and this is something that I got from when I was a student myself, was using like an instrument, so like a maraca or a shaker, to just make a little bit of a sound, and they should be able to hear that sound and then fall quiet and start listening. That will take training, that will take time, and sometimes they'll forget about it throughout the year and you'll have to remind them about it. And it also means that you're rarely raising your voice. Personally, raising the voice, shouting, yelling, it's just not, it's not the kind of teaching style that I think anyone should be doing in this day and age. It's not productive. All it's teaching them is that they can make you really angry. I think I can honestly count the amount of times that I've had to raise my voice on one hand throughout the whole year, and it's usually because someone's going to be in danger. So again, look into your policy, but that's what I will say, something that I think was a strength of mine. And also being overly positive, smiling a lot, not just in the classroom but around the school as well, saying hello, saying good morning to the children, holding open doors, just constantly remembering that you're a role model to them. They are going to look up to you as role models regardless, so if you're going to be able to be a positive one and a happy one, then that kind of energy I think just rubs off people. You know, they say smiling is contagious, so smile, just smile, you know, like it's such a short year really. Like in September it can feel like it's like such a long time away till the end of the year, but before you know it will be July and they will be moving on to their new teacher or their new school, and it just goes by really quickly. So make the most of the time that you have with them. And I think the final thing I will say is something that I'm proud of myself, is that what I did really well was being receptive to advice and to other people's opinions. I think being an NQT, being a student and then an NQT, is literally your time to be a sponge and to soak up people's advice. Some people will have been working at your school for over a decade, some people will have been working there for a year. It doesn't really matter how long they've been working there. If they're going to give you a tip, if they're going to give you some support, if they're going to, even if they like, you know, knew the child from last year because they worked in the same year group and they want to tell you something, take it in, have a notebook, with you and take in as much as you can, because that's the only way that you're going to grow to be a really good teacher, is by being able to listen to advice. So yeah, I'm going to end the video here. If you guys have any questions, then definitely leave them down below, and as always I will get back to them. And like I said, I will be doing separate videos on separate topics. I've literally got a whole notebook full of what I want to talk about and your guys' questions, like did you ever seriously consider giving up, how do you deal with more experienced TAs, how do you juggle the workload, hardest challenge you face. All those sort of things will be coming up in my next couple of videos. For now, thank you so much for watching, and if you haven't subscribed yet, you know what to do, and do hit thumbs up if you enjoy this video. I will see you in my next one. Bye.